This right here, this is what it's all about, folks. The curtain has been lifted on Nintendo's next console. It's iterative, staying consistent with Nintendo's trend of following up highly successful generations with direct successor hardware. While I am surprised that Switch 2 is the final name, I'm not totally surprised by what we got here. The display is significantly bigger, demonstrated rather nicely in the trailer, with the new screen bulging out of the current Switch we know and love. The entire device has evolved. It looks to have an almost speckled matte finish, and a much higher quality kickstand than the flimsy little flap we have on the current model. Joy-Con have also evolved. Most notably, they pop in from the sides rather than sliding on. Maybe the most eye-catching upgrade to the Joy-Con 2 are what look like higher quality thumbsticks with a splash of color underneath. It's a really nice contrast with the all-black console, and I really like how that looks. Along with the slightly larger size, there's a mysterious blank button on the lower part of the right Joy-Con. And on the connecting end, the top, there's an elevated ridge with two unmarked areas on the ends that could also be buttons. Without any markings or demonstration, it's near impossible to speculate about what all these buttons could do. But there's one more hardware thing here that's a bit easier to speculate about. This indentation looks like it could be for an optical sensor. There was a rumor floating around that Switch 2 Joy-Con would feature some sort of optical sensor, allowing them to be used like a computer mouse on a tabletop. And that's exactly what we seem to be looking at here. I'm looking at the underside of my computer mouse as I type this, and yep, it looks pretty much exactly like that. This functionality is further hinted at a bit later in the trailer, when we see the Joy-Con in motion, tilted, and racing around a flat surface inside a new wrist strap attachment. It really seems like some sort of point-and-click functionality is being hinted at here. This might end up being a very niche feature, since I can't imagine many games controlling all that comfortably in this manner, but for aiming in a first-person game like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, or even the cursor in a Pikmin game, or something like a Fire Emblem that's grid-based, I could imagine this working surprisingly well. One Joy-Con in your dominant hand working as the quote-unquote mouse, and the other upright in your other hand for the primary controls, almost like a Wii remote in a nunchuck. But for me, the best part of today's announcement was the first look at what might be our first Switch 2 exclusive game, an all-new next-gen Mario Kart. Since this was a hardware-focused trailer, this could have easily been stock footage or a tech demo, but if we look closely at Mario Kart here, I think it's far too detailed to be anything but a real Switch 2 game. This is a new desert course that looks very fleshed out, and examining the characters up close, we see some really awesome new and stylized renders for characters like Mario, Peach, Donkey Kong, and more. Another thing of note, there's clearly more than 12 racers on the course, which is another first for the series and could be a core selling point for the new title. Whether this is final game footage or not, there's a lot to unpack just from the couple seconds we saw of Mario Kart, and I'm sure I'll be watching this 100 more times in the days and weeks to come. If you're a Mario Kart fan, then keep an eye on the channel here, because I'll be doing a full Mario Kart analysis soon. We also got full confirmation of a Switch 2 focused direct happening on the 2nd of April. This will no doubt go in depth on the new hardware, plus the software, which will of course feature many new games. There was no firm release date given for Switch 2, only the year 2025, but there is enough here to make an educated guess on when it might launch. If we look back at the big Nintendo Switch presentation of 2017, that took place in January, 3 months after the reveal in October of the prior year. 2 months after that January presentation is when we saw the console release in March. It looks like we could be on a similar trajectory here, because 3 months from now will be April, presentation month, and then 2 months from April would be June. So early June is my best guess as to when the Switch 2 will actually hit store shelves. Another bit of evidence to support a June release? There are these hands-on experiences now scheduled worldwide, with the first one in New York scheduled just a few days after the big April presentation, and the very last last one in Seoul is scheduled to end on June 1st, just a few days before what could be our eventual release date. Knowing all this about the Switch 2 has some implications for Nintendo's more immediate future too. Today marks the release of Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, something which seems heavily overshadowed by this news. But after that, the next game scheduled is Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, which doesn't come out for a while, the end of March. Most likely, we will have a Pokemon Day Presents at the end of February, which should showcase Pokemon Legends ZA, but we are going to have to hear more about Nintendo's more immediate lineup for Switch 1. Next month, the month of February, seems like an ideal time to slot in a regular Switch 1 Nintendo Direct. Whether that's a smaller Direct Mini or a full-length General Direct that focuses exclusively or at least mostly on titles for the current Nintendo Switch. This is also where we could see a game shadow dropped for the currently empty month of February, a month that is hardly ever dry from Nintendo. Something like The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD or Metroid Prime 2+3 collection could fit in nicely here. We'll also need some releases for between March and June, and most likely after June too, especially with backwards compatibility confirmed. We should be confident that the original Switch will continue to be supported, with new titles well into the life of Switch 2, and the upcoming Switch game lineup shouldn't slow down all that much just because a new console has been announced. Between the possibility of a February Nintendo Direct and the Pokemon Presents on Pokemon Day, things are looking real interesting, and I'm very excited for what's to come. But please, let me know what you think. How are you feeling about Switch 2? Do you like the look of the console? How do you feel about its name? It's not often that a console's real name is straight up just the same as the placeholder name we've been calling it for years. So this is kind of a crazy scenario. Also, let me know what you think about that new Mario Kart, and whether or not you think that's real game footage. Do you think it'll be a launch title coming day and date with Switch 2? Or will it be here a little bit after launch, kind of like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe did? In that case, is 3D Mario the launch title? But what about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond? What month will that hit? Will it come before or after the launch of Switch 2? I'm so excited for all of this, and I've had scenarios constantly running through my head. Trust me, I could barely contain myself all day today. So I'd really love to get a discussion going with all of you in the comments section below. Let's enjoy today because it marks the start of a new console generation for Nintendo, and that's something that doesn't come around very often. I'm so happy, I'm so relieved, and I'm so grateful to be here at the start getting to discuss and speculate on it with all of you watching. If you're new here, then consider subscribing since I make videos with the goal of sharing the joy of Nintendo with other fans like myself. And here, we're going to be talking so much more about Switch 2 for years and years to come.